Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Untold Tales from This Side of Nowhere. I'm your host, Connor Jones, and we're here talking about the outdoors, about small town experiences, and of course, what it's like growing up in the middle of nowhere, or I guess just about as close as you can get to the middle of nowhere. That's this side of nowhere in Poverty Flats, Wyoming. Before we get started, I'd like to share a message from our sponsors. Our podcast is sponsored by the Copper Corner Cafe. The Copper Corner is operating under their winter hours, which means they're open from Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. with dinner on Fridays. So Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and Fridays they're open until 7 p.m. So go ahead and stop in for breakfast and lunch Monday through Thursday or Saturday, and be sure to go check them out for dinner on Friday nights during their limited winter hours. Stop by and try any of their delicious menu items featuring homemade bread for all sandwiches and, of course, their famous pie for dessert. Come on in and join us at the Copper Corner Cafe. We're also sponsored by the Wyoming Welcome Program. The folks at the Wyoming Welcome Program produce brochures called Table Talk brochures, which are placed on restaurant tables in Cody and Powell. These brochures are full of facts about Wyoming, jokes, and the month's holidays. In addition to this information, they include advertisements from local businesses. So, if you would like to be included in a brochure and get your business name out there, please send them an email. Their service is affordable and effective, and you can reach them at HaleyJ, that's HALEYJ, at WyomingWelcome.com. And now, the podcast. Well, I have some great news about the elk fire. It's not completely extinguished. That's the elk fire on the Sheridan side of the Bighorn Mountains. It's been the big concern up here in northwestern Wyoming. But the great news is that with some colder weather, and some precipitation, it's now over 50% contained. And Highway 14 up the Lovell side of the mountain is now open again. So farmers who are concerned about their livestock that are up there can get in and remove livestock if there's any left. If you were evacuated and left your camper up there, you can now go pick up your camper. So this is great news, and we continue to hope and pray that the fire can be completely extinguished. What we could use is probably the onset of winter. I don't know if I've ever really wanted to get some snow and really get the winter weather going, but this year we need it. We need to get that fire out. So I know there's another fire down in DuBois, and I believe that one has also benefited from some cooler temperatures. So we're just hoping that this late fire season can wrap up and we can get back to the good, clear Wyoming air that we're so used to being blessed with. So, other news, we've got football seasons wrapping up. This is the last weekend of the regular season for 3A and 4A, and I believe that 1A and 2A football is going into their postseason. So, good luck to all the teams out there. I know that our Powell Panthers are going to go down and play Evanston this weekend and then hopefully go into the playoffs. My alma mater, the Burlington Huskies, are doing well this year. I believe they're second in the state in six-man football, looking to go into the postseason with a strong record. And I wish them a good luck. Shout out to my cousin Reichel, who's playing for the Burlington Huskies this year. So, yeah, football season is a lot of fun. I'm not going to even talk about the Wyoming Cowboys. I'm I'm in mourning. So, it's been a terrible season for Wyoming. They have won one game against Air Force. So, anyways, let's go ahead and roll in with the story today. This will be a shorter one, but it's a topic that I think most listeners can relate to. Anyone who has lived in northwestern Wyoming for any amount of time has had experience with this topic. The story is called Fences from This Side of Nowhere. So, here goes. Looks like you chose the wrong seat, my twin brother Fred laughed as he bumped me with his shoulder. He was seated in the middle of the bench seat of Dad's trusty old maroon F-150 pickup truck, and I was seated next to him, which placed me in the unfortunate position of being closest to the door. Under most circumstances, sitting by the door was a coveted position on the bench seat. If you were sitting by the door, that meant you had a headrest, since there were only two on the bench seat, and it also meant you did not have to sit with your feet resting on the hump and your knees somewhere around the height of your ears. Sitting in the middle also meant you had to worry about Dad having to reach over you to kick the truck into 4 low when things got rough, which they usually did when Weave Jones boys went fishing. I totally forgot about this gate, I grumbled. Should have known something was up when you picked the hump, Fred. Caldwell, my little brother, chortled from his position in the back seat as I unfastened my seatbelt and clambered out of the truck so I could open the barbed wire gate in front of us. If you aren't from a rural area or a farming town like, say, Poverty Flats, Wyoming, then you're probably scratching your head about now. That's because all of your experiences with fences involve watching fence posts whiz by on a busy highway, or maybe some chain link fence at a tennis club, or maybe even a little white picket fence surrounding someone's well-manicured yard. You're lucky because for the most part, fences play a passive role in your existence. That is not the case the closer you get to the middle of nowhere. In the case of the fishing trip the Jones boys took last summer, I was now opening a gate while my twin brother grinned from his comfortable position in the pickup truck because I had somehow forgotten my cowboy logic. You see, as Michael Martin Murphey explains in his song Cowboy Logic, the real cowboy sits in the middle of the pickup bench seat. According to Murphy, you can tell the cowboy seated in the middle is the real cowboy because, first, he don't have to drive, and then he don't have to mess with the gate. When it comes to fences, there's a lot to know. Let's start with wire. In the mid-1800s, when white settlers first migrated west, people in the east used lots of things to build fences to help keep livestock in, including rocks, wood, and even hedgerows. In the West, wood was scarce. Building rock walls was labor-intensive, and anyone who manicured a hedgerow ran the risk of some serious ridicule. Not to mention, people got tired of waiting around for hedges to grow. Before wire fences were invented, early cattlemen tried many things to keep their livestock rounded up and off of the train tracks that began snaking across the plains. In 1865, after an early winter storm dumped 4 feet of snow, Earl A. Bedgar discovered that building walls of snow was a relatively fast and inexpensive way to keep cattle from escaping their assigned piece of prairie. Snow wall is working well, Bedgar wrote in his diary. Cows have not gotten out in a week. They don't even try to get to the greener grass on the other side of the fence. Of course, there is no grass on either side of the fence due to the snow. Unfortunately for Earl, when things warmed up in the western U.S. about 2 years later, the snow melted, and he was once again faced with the problem of nomadic livestock. Another effort to pen in cattle was devised by one enterprising cowboy by the name of Merle Vanderholler. Noticing that the West had an abundance of prairie grass, he began weaving it into strands, some of which stretched quite long. He devised a means of stringing the grass between sagebrush and was successful in at least slowing down the movements of his cattle. Due to the labor-intensive process required to make the grass ropes, and the fact that the cows simply ate most of them, Vanderholler's approach to keeping cattle penned in never really caught on. Years later, when Vanderholler applied his techniques to wool, however, he became famous when he created the largest ball of yarn on Earth, which can still be seen in western North Dakota. Apparently, it is the only point of interest in an otherwise very flat state and draws large crowds of entertainment-starved tourists every year. Wire did not come onto the scene until midway through the 19th century. Its origins are a bit tangled and thorny at best, but most sources point to Lucian B. Smith of Kent, Ohio, as the father of barbed wire. In 1867, he realized that a stretched wire with metallic points could be stapled to fence posts to deter cattle and make the lives of those humans tasked with building said fence miserable.
Daddy.
Oh, I forgot to mention, Reuben, my oldest son, is awake this morning, and he's recording with me. What was your question about fences, Reuben?
That if there wasn't a fence, the animals would escape and get lost.
Yes, that is correct. If they didn't build fences, the animals would escape and get lost. So that's why they started building fences.
All over the United States of America.
Yes, and especially in the West.
Yeah, definitely in the West.
Because when folks got out west, there weren't any fences. Yeah.
So that's why we need fences that's why they built fences in the United States.
Yeah. And we're talking about barbed wire fences. That's the one that was invented by Lucian B. Smith.
Reuben B. Smith? Yeah, definitely barbed wire fences. Yeah, they definitely poke.
Yeah, they do poke.
Yeah, they're really good pokes.
Okay. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
In 1867, Lucian B. Smith realized that a stretched wire with metallic points could be stapled to fence posts to deter cattle and make the lives of those humans tasked with building said fence miserable.
Miserable fences.
Yeah, that's barbed wire fence.
Yeah, that's the barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
Definitely right there on the barbed wire fence. Pop.
Yep. Later, Joseph F. Glidden of DeKalb, Illinois, determined that Smith's invention could be further improved upon and wound two strands of wire together, with barbs held between the two strands. This design proved very successful at poking holes through gloves, pants,
and shirts.
yes, and the sleeves of cowboy shirts.
And cowboy shirts, they're like this, but they like.
Yep, they got holes.
Kind of like knives. Cut.
Exactly.
And scissors. Chip.
Yep.
Definitely like those things and the not sticks that can cut sticks.
Yep.
Definitely.
So
Like cutting off elk. Remember the elk you shot?
yes.
The girl elk?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He was trying to shoot it in the
chest, yeah.
Yeah, the chest, but someone just X'd it.
Got the leg a little bit, huh?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I saw the whole of the leg. Yeah,
Yep.
I definitely saw it. It was good. You definitely saw it.
Yes. Okay, let's keep talking about barbed wire here. So the two-strand barbed wire was successfully employed across the West. It is said that tailors were the primary investors in barbed wire companies, probably due to the large increase in business they foresaw with the adoption of barbed wire as the primary means of fencing in the West. Today, barbed wire is cranked out in factories and shipped in large rolls that are heavy enough to throw out your back when you pick them up, but not so heavy that you aren't willing to try it over and over again.
Throw off your back.
Yeah.
Bleh.
Yeah, like hurt your back.
Yeah, like bent your back. Oh.
Exactly.
And kind of your legs hurt.
Yep. I recall my first experience with building barbed wire fence, which proved to be hazardous to both my physical and emotional health. My Grandpa Jones, that's your great-grandpa Jones.
Great-grandpa,
So
yeah.
Papa Jones' dad.
That's the one. That's my great-grandpa who built the cabinet, right?
That's your other great-grandpa.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
This is the great-grandpa who was in the tornado. Remember that story?
No.
Oh, I told it to you at Family Home Evening. When he's herding sheep and the tornado came?
Yeah.
That will have to be a story for another podcast, huh? Yeah.
You should stay where there's a tornado that's the biggest tornado that could break the earth.
Oh, man. That's a big tornado.
Yeah, that would be the giant tornado. Yeah. And then a giant comes in and pushes the tornado, and then the tornado spins the giant, and then the giant falls onto all of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yes. So this Grandpa Jones, when I was a kid, he asked me and your uncle to build a fence for him.
Oh, because all of his animals keep running off?
Yep.
Yeah, that's why he wants a barbed wire fence.
Yes.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yep. So my Grandpa Jones had tasked Fred and I with building the fence around a section of his yard to help keep Uncle Greg's cows from getting in and tromping up his lawn, something from which cows derive immense pleasure.
Witch cows? What's a witch cow? I never know what a witch cow looks like. And I know what normal cows look like. They're black and white, just like Chipper.
Yep, these were black and white cows. He had some red and white ones too. So, but they kept getting into the yard, so we had to build this fence.
Oh, dang it! Why do I have to get in the yard? Shape up.
These were cows.
Why did you have to get into the cows? Why did you have to get in the yard?
They tromp up the lawn.
Oh,
so.
I mean, that's not good.
No.
That's why they want a barbed wire fence.
Yes. We, of course, started with setting the fence posts, which is one of the more labor-intensive parts of building fence. With a couple shovels, we set out excavating the holes, which, to our dismay, quickly filled with water. What we had forgotten is that Grandma and Grandpa Jones's house is set on a parcel of land with an extremely high water table, and as soon as we had dug 1.5 feet, water seeped into the hole. Unsure of what else to do, we inserted the oil-soaked logs Grandpa had supplied as fence posts and tamped rocks and gravel around them in an effort to make them stable. They seemed to hold all right, though we had serious doubts about how long the posts would last, being consistently soaked in water. Judging by the way many of the other fence posts in the fence around his property had rotted off, my guess was these would eventually do the same. Grandpa was insistent, however, and at age 13, Fred and I didn't have any better solutions, so we made do with our fence post holes filled with water. Once the posts were set, we began stringing wire. We started with the woven wire, which we thought was a pain to work with. But then again, we hadn't gotten to the barbed wire yet and were quite naive. We rolled the wire out and stapled one end to the corner post, then used Dad's fence stretcher to pull the wire tight. This is usually when you discover...
What is, like one of those, things that go like, it's kind of like, you can, it's for, you can, try to, It's kind of like a hammer, but it's actually not, because it has two things that's a part of a hammer. It's not a hammer. It's a double half-hitch hammer.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a cool double hip hammer. If you didn't have one of those, you couldn't bang anything like a rock into parts.
I think you're probably talking about the wire cutters that are half hammer, half wire cutters.
Yeah, definitely I'm talking about those. And that's crazy that I can do those, but I can't.
Yeah, that's a cool invention that makes doing fence a lot easier.
Yeah, it's doing the double half-hitch hammers.
Sure. So, yeah, we did use those when we were doing the woven wire. And we thought woven wire was hard to work with, but that's because we hadn't worked with barbed wire yet.
Definitely not, you guys. You guys were yeah, definitely it's a good time to do the other fences and not barbed wire fences.
Oh, if you want to be heard, you gotta come over here closer to the microphone, or else they can't hear you. Okay, that's better. Okay, so we got out the barbed wire, and let's see.
The barbed wire. You think was appropriate, but
Yes.
and you would definitely think they couldn't build a barbed wire, but they could, because they were with their grandpa.
Yep. But we had to do the woven wire first.
Oh, yeah, definitely the woven wire.
Yep. We rolled the wire out and stapled one end to the corner post, then used Dad's fence stretcher to pull the wire tight.
Fence stretcher. Ooh.
Yep. This is usually when you discover one of your fence posts is not perfectly in line with the others, and it gives you some grief when you're trying to get your wire pulled tight. We stapled the wire to the offending post and put some more tension on it, managing to get the wire pretty taut. Our confidence rising, we proceeded to tackle the barbed wire.
Tackle. Yeah, I'm done.
It would turn out that tackling the barbed wire was a poor choice, and both of us emerged with shredded t-shirts and not a few scrapes.
Poor choices are like, let's see.
Like tackling a roll of barbed wire?
And definitely tackling your brother, not even asking your mom and dad.
That's true. That's a poor choice.
Poor. It's poor. It's definitely poor.
Yep.
Everything without doing stuff for, like asking your mom or dad to tackle your brother, that's not a poor choice.
So if you ask your mom and dad first, it's okay? Okay. Guess tackling it won't work, Fred huffed, sucking on a pricked finger. Yup, I agreed. We'll have to try lifting it between us.
Oh, that's not going to work either.
Well, let's see.
That's a poor choice or a good choice.
Let's see if it's poor or good. We stuck a long stick in the hole in the center of the roll, and having tied off one end on our corner post, began stringing the wire out. Unbeknownst to us, barbed wire has a mind of its own, and this strand had different plans. It started by flinging itself at our feet, tangling our legs, and tearing at our jeans. A strand of barbed wire strikes like a rattlesnake, but doesn't administer venom when it bites. It would probably be less painful if it did. By the time we got the strand to the post where the fence ended, both Fred and I were pretty fed up with barbed wire, and it didn't seem to have any great love for us either.
No, definitely not. Because if they didn't have good luck, it would be a poor choice. Because it didn't work, but somehow it did.
Yeah, Fred and Al got that first wire strung out.
Yep.
Come on, let's get this stretched out so we can get done with this infernal fence, I growled.
Far and open.
Bad news, Fred said. What? I asked. Grandpa said we need to put 2 strands on the top of this fence. After we get this one set, we're only halfway done.
Oh, dang, guys. Why do you have to do more work, Dad?
Yeah, 2 strands makes a better barbed wire fence. I would have considered quitting right then and there, but Fred and I had never quit at anything before, and we weren't about to start. Furthermore, Grandpa liked to make regular visits to survey our work, and he probably wouldn't be too happy to find us sitting in the shade. Once he came out to see how things were progressing and found us struggling to dig fence post holes. Grandpa had a little hoe he had sharpened so many times with a grinder it had been reduced to a mere triangle on a stick, which worked quite well for chopping at weeds and doubled as a walking stick. Grandpa walked with a shuffle developed over approximately 80 years of herding sheep, and we had paused in our efforts when we saw him exit the house. I threw my shovelful of dirt onto the growing pile and raised a hand in greeting. Grandpa grinned and set off down the steps. Fred and I heaved a couple more shovelfuls of dirt and checked on Grandpa's advance.
And if you get hurt, like, I have a scratch right here that's bad.
Uh-huh.
And I have one that's on my foot. Kind of
Uh-huh.
I have 2 on this leg, so it's really annoying that I have to. This one's the annoying one because it's stuck in my hair. It's stuck in my hair, and the other one's just like in the middle of my foot. And
Did you know Grandpa Jones, your great-grandpa Jones, got his leg hurt when he was a little boy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got bucked off a horse and it broke his hip. So that's part of why he walks so slow. And when he was coming out of the house, we had thrown like 3 shovelfuls of dirt and he made it to the first step.
What?
Then we kept watching.
And if you, what are those things? What is that one where you have to, like, there's horns and he dumps them, and then the video where there's horns and this animal kind of does horns and then.
A deer?
No, it's one with those
Horns. Elk?
It's not an elk. Elk don't have. It's a buffalo.
Oh, a buffalo.
Buffaloes, and it runs, and then it bucks people like doing backflip. And it uses horns and bucks them. Kind of like a horse bucking people. Buck.
Yeah.
But their horn actually buck them into.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's really funny.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't want them to get hurt by their horns.
No.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Buffalo can hurt. No, Daddy, don't laugh.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how to connect this buffalo to the story I'm telling.
I know.
Was there a connection?
Buffalo.
How about we go back to the story? Maybe Grandpa made it to the second step by now.
I don't know.
Okay. Here we go. All right. We finished one hole and started on another one. Grandpa had reached the lawn. By the time Grandpa shuffled up to where we had finished the second hole, we were pouring sweat and leaned on our shovels as he approached. "Whew," Grandpa huffed when he finally reached the finished fence post hole. "Why'd you 2 stop?" he added. "When I was in my prime, I set a 1/4 mile of fence posts digging through solid rock on the bighorns in a single day. What is this? Your 3rd hole?" He chuckled and peered into the bottom of the new excavation. "Looks good, boys." Now, with the final strand of barbed wire coiled up between us and the end of our job, Fred and I were determined to finish. Repeating our previous performance, we each gripped an end of the stick we had inserted in the hole at the center of the roll and heaved it off the ground for a second pass, having first tied off the end at our final fence post. A regular spool of wire will feed smoothly off a roll, but not barbed wire.
Smoothly rolling a roll or a ball with Play-Doh. Yeah, definitely you can roll something really smooth like a ball, like a heart. You can.
Yep, but not barbed wire.
No, not barbed wire. You can do around it.
Yeah.
Barbed wire is just like a big broken rectangle or something.
Yeah. Since the barbs got caught on one another as the wire unwound, a strand would move a little at a time with jerks and bounds, not unlike a Gen Z trying to drive a stick shift. This made unwinding barbed wire even less fun, if that were possible. "Come on, you piece of junk," I hollered, kicking at the strand as it became inexplicably tangled in my pant leg, even though I was walking with the wire coming off the roll behind me. "These pants are toast," I said sadly, surveying what was left of my carpenter jeans. "Yeah," Fred said, grunting as he pulled on the coil. "Barbed wire is the worst. Next time, let's convince Grandpa to go with an electric fence." When we finally reached the end, we carefully cut the wire, leaving plenty of extra length to tie off the end, and clamped the fence stretcher between a couple barbs, only getting poked a couple dozen times in the process. Fitting the end of the fence stretcher over the end of the corner post, I prepared to crank. A fence stretcher is not unlike a handyman jack in its design, and operates by means of a handle that pulls the wire tight by advancing a clamp up a notched bar. If you've used one before, you probably hate the things. But with all our technological advancements in the modern age, they're still the cheapest, most effective tool for stretching wire. "Okay, let's crank this sucker," Fred huffed.
The sucker, that means like eat the sucker or crank something up, like an engine or something. Crank an engine up for a light car.
Yeah. In this case, Fred was talking about the barbed wire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, crank this barbed wire up. Crank, 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 crank.
The backs of his leather gloves were dark with sweat, as was the back of his shirt. I figured a similar mark had blossomed on my own back. With a grunt, Fred pulled on the handle and tightened the wire a click. Then another, and another.
Another.
Yeah. The post creaked under the strain, and the wire hummed with pent-up energy, bouncing slightly as it grew tight. Gingerly, I wrapped the trailing end around the post and twisted the end back around itself using the big pair of fencing pliers we had borrowed from Dad. Once the wire was secure, I gave Fred a nod and he released the stretcher. Clank went the stretcher as it released its hold on the wire and fell away. In the fading daylight, we stapled the strand to the fence posts, the sound of our hammering drifting across Poverty Flats. As I drove the last fencing staple, Grandpa shuffled up behind Fred and I. We hadn't noticed his slow, steady approach, being focused on driving staples. "Not too shabby," Grandpa nodded his head in approval. "You boys did a good job. Thank you. I would have done it myself, but I figured you could use the experience." Fred and I grinned and surveyed our handiwork. "That ought to keep the cows out," Fred agreed. I was at Grandma and Grandpa's house just the other day for one of my niece's birthday parties. Since Grandma and Grandpa had passed, Cousin Billy had moved into their place with his wife and 2 kids. As we sat in the backyard and watched our kiddos play, I couldn't help but notice the fence Fred and I had built more than a decade before. The woven wire was tight, and the strands of barbed wire swayed a bit whenever a stray ball hit the fence, but it was still there, standing tall. "Do you ever get cows in the yard?" I asked Billy. "Nope," he replied. "Good," I said. "I guess those posts Fred and I set in a few inches of water haven't rotted off yet." Yep.
Okay.
Joseph just joined us too. Now we got 3 of the Jones boys here recording a podcast. Huh, Jojo? Yep.
Joey loves being with podcast with me. He's my brother.
Yes, he is your brother. Can you say hi, Jojo?
He's a big brother. My brother.
Yes, Reuben is your brother, huh? Can you say hello?
Hi, David, my brother.
I know he's your brother, but can you say hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Help. Yeah, he's really funny. He doesn't know how to say that much words, actually.
Well, he says a lot of words.
Yeah,
It's just we're all trying hard to understand them, huh, Jojo?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Joey.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, you guys, we just finished the story about fences from this side of nowhere.
Yay!
Yeah. So if you guys listening have a story about fences, and you'd like to share it with us, go ahead and comment on this podcast episode when it drops on Facebook, or send me an email. I love to hear from you. And that's you can reach me at untoldtalesthepodcast@gmail.com. Yep, on the computer.
Okay.
So, as always, this has been another untold tale from this side of nowhere, where we were twice as hard for half as much and still find time for important things like fishing. See you next time, folks.
Bye.
Bye.